Hello and welcome back to the Building Business Resilience Show. Gareth and Shane here again from Sanctuary Financial Planning, specialising in lifestyle financial planning for growth businesses and influencers. With all that's going on in the current climate, a number of people have been worried about some of the legal ramification issues facing business owners. So in today's video, we've got Ben Jenkins here, partner and head of litigation of Harding Evans Solicitors. Harding Evans Solicitors is a well-established law firm which delivers a specialist range of legal services to commercial and private clients. They have over 110 staff, including 10 partners, 70 fee earners over their offices in Cardiff and Newport. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Guys, how are we all?
Very well, thank you.
How are we doing?
What are we, week 4?
End
of week 4. Shane, it's week 6 for you, I think, isn't it?
8.
8?
Week 8.
We haven't been in lockdown for 8 weeks, have you?
I feel like I have.
Yeah, I bet it does.
I feel like I have. Never mind counting the weeks. I don't even know what day of the week it is.
Yeah.
I look at the diary and I look at what the work is to be done in the diary today, not what day of the week it is. Fridays
don't have the same feeling anymore, do they?
I don't think there is a Friday feeling anymore, is there? There certainly isn't the Sunday night feeling.
No.
It just morphs into one.
It is weird. It does just morph into one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's it's strange. Yeah, but hey, interesting times out there. But something on a cheery note, anyway. Tom Moore, what a guy, Captain Tom Moore, Second World War veteran. What was his plan? 100 laps before he was 100, I think. Mm. And his plan originally was to just raise £1,000 for the NHS. And when I wrote this about an hour ago, it was 18.5 million. But when I just checked now, I think it's at 18.8. So it's gone up 300,000 in about an hour.
Incredible.
Bonkers.
You guys know, being from this country, you know the situation with knighthoods and all that, and it's done, isn't it, twice a year? Is it January and whatever time, and there's specific things about it, and you have to be nominated and all this sort of red tape. In a nice way, I saw Piers Morgan going on about it the last day. Because of his age and because of what he's done, can't they just fast track something like this through and give him a knighthood tomorrow? And, you know, he's 99. He's not going to be on this planet for the next 10, 12 years. Let him bloody enjoy being called sir for what he's done for the next week that he's alive, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, whatever it is. But just do it. Now, it's unusual times. Why have to stick with the normality and the regimental process? This is a unique guy. He's done something unbelievable. Just, honor him quickly.
True. Very true. Very true.
I agree. You don't know the answer to that then, Gareth, as Shane's introduction was. Surely we would know as people from this country.
Yeah, do you know,
I know the Queen well, but
I was going to say, Queen well. I don't know. I'll drop her a WhatsApp later and see what her thoughts are.
He's always on that.
You know what I both mean.
He's probably happy with the captain status, though, isn't he? That's good enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then you should know. How do you address someone with that? Is it Sir Captain or Captain Sir or what?
I don't know what supersedes the other.
Not sure.
Goodness knows.
No.
But I think what it does show is the power of humanity and social media actually together.
Yeah.
It's a huge feat. We'll put the Just Giving page in the show notes. I actually have donated to it the other day. So it'll be in the show notes for anyone. Okay, so we'll move on from that. So Ben, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I say very well as can be expected. Business as usual to a large extent. It's for me, it's keeping perspective. I'm not on the front line. Working from home with 2 young kids and a wife whose solicitor's got its own challenges, obviously. But just grateful for the fact that that we are not on the front line, and we've got absolutely fantastic people out there who are. And you're hearing amazing stories every day about it, which is superb. So, to answer your question, I'm as well as can be expected, business as usual. But as I say, grateful for what I got.
Brilliant.
Unusual times.
How are you finding the work homeschooling balance? Like, say your wife's a lawyer as well, isn't she? So
that's right. My oldest is 5, so the homeschooling is not exactly sophisticated.
No.
Learning what last one was what coin is which, and you know, there are creative activities. So I made a bouquet yesterday over lunch with my 5-year-old for my wife, which she was obviously thrilled with. Cutting and pasting, making an absolute mess of things, and I don't have a creative bone in my body, so it was an interesting looking design, but she was happy with it. But that's the kind of thing. It's I'm enjoying that element of it, actually. It is frustrating because you just think, how do you not remember what 5p is? We dealt with this about 10 minutes ago, and I thought you'd got it, I thought you'd nailed it, but no. But in terms of working, you know, it's, as I'm sure most people are, we just got a rota in place.
Yeah.
You know, we rotate every 3 hours, starting at 6, and then
Really?
Finish at 6, and then mop up after that. So it's not like I'm off a shift, as I call it a shift in inverted commas, but come off the shift and then you're straight in the trenches with the kids. So it's relentless, you know.
Yeah, no, I know. Because you do the same, Shane, on your shifts. I Kath's still on maternity leave, so kind of I'm still kind of, but we're balancing it.
It's difficult because it's unusual times. There's no template to go by because it's never happened before. What was unprofessional 10 weeks ago of a child walking in on a Zoom chat is now the norm. If a child doesn't walk in, you're actually not normal. You know, it's okay to not be okay at the moment, because, you know, we chatted to Tristan the last time about this, and people's health and physical health, mental health is probably going to be stressed, and they're going to struggle with it because it's unprecedented times. So, you know, it's okay to think, why haven't you learned this 5B? What have I got to do? Because it's difficult. You know, we're all in lockdown. We're going to be here for another few weeks. We got to just sometimes realize it's okay not to be okay. And as much as a 5-year-old isn't learning a thing, I don't even know what's going on in their heads, because all of a sudden their the world has been turned upside down. They don't know the routine of going to school and after school club now. They don't have the routine of going to soft play. They don't have the routine of seeing their friends. Now they're kind of going, you have to teach me. You're not as good as a teacher, you know. In our house, the Disney Channel time, a lot of time has been increasing every day. You know, it was a set time and now it's gone up and up and up.
Yeah.
But you do what you have to survive.
Yeah, it's not forever, is it? So.
No, I hope not.
No. I think that a huge respect for the teachers, I think, in a way, because it's a lot to try and do, and I think it's the patience element, isn't it? You know.
Oh yes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It really does, but I think, you know, it's just not stressing about it. I think it's teaching the kids something which is different sometimes as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd like to think as well, just touching on the sort of trying to work as well, that, you know, if someone does hear a kid on the phone when you're talking, they're not exactly going to kick off about it. It's, as Shane was saying, it's kind of the norm at the moment. Everyone understands that everyone's making the best of the situation and trying to work through it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I know you. Gareth knows you a bit, but for the people on here, give us an introduction for people that don't know you, and tell us a bit about you.
Well, I'm, as Gareth touched on, Head of Litigation across our Newport and Cardiff offices. I deal with commercial litigation, so that varies across breach of contract, injunctions, construction dispute, shareholder and director disputes, and commercial property disputes as well. So it's a fairly wide-ranging area, and I come at it from a background of drafting commercial agreements and transactional commercial instructions. So that gives me a unique insight into understanding what's happened and what's gone wrong and why, really. And I've got a fantastic team around me of experienced solicitors who are very good at what they do, increasingly specialised. So it's a joy, really.
Brilliant. Work getting busier at the moment with all that's going on, or has it not pushed through to you?
Well, it's still busy because, you know, it's business as usual for the courts. You know, the wheels of justice keep on turning. So in terms of the inquiries that we've been getting as a department, you know, some weird and wonderful things you'd imagine, just because it's such a strange world we're in. Things are changing daily. Court guidance is changing daily. You know, we had an example recently where a solicitor in our team and a judge had to work through what the rules actually were at the time, because the judge didn't know, and the solicitor in my team did, so they had to talk through that and get it sorted. And that just gives you an idea really of how people are trying to get through it with completely changing rules and changing kind of formats of how things are done. In terms of, you know, inquiries we're getting, I've had quite a few of sort of inquiries about contracts, you know, concerns about what this might mean to existing and new contracts.
Yeah.
There's kind of a perception that a judge might imply terms into a contract in this situation that people would deem fair, but the reality is there's no automatic mechanism at all. You know, traditionally certainly in this jurisdiction, judges, in terms of their interpretation of contracts, they interpret them fairly narrowly. You know, they interpret them on the wording, so that there is kind of a myth that and don't get me wrong, you know, you have to look at the contract. There are force majeure clauses which you guys might be familiar with. So, for example, if there's an event outside a party's control, they might be released from some obligations under that contract. So, you know, strikes and war, and you know, you don't get pandemics typically listed under your normal commercial contracts. And there are persuasive arguments that, you know, this sort of situation is such an example, but it's not an automatic right. It does depend very much on the wording and also the evidence that parties have in demonstrating the impact it's had on their business and so on.
Yeah, I think that stems across a lot of things, because speaking to some guys with regards to insurance, I think they've thought the same with regards to like commercial insurances, that the fact of a pandemic might help them with things like their loss of earnings insurance, but it's not in them, you know, because they're not suddenly just going to change the wording because of what it kind of is. It is what it is, you know. Yeah,
and we experienced similar things as well in terms of payments. You know, we're finding that people are using this as an excuse not to pay for validly raised invoices. And, you know, don't get me wrong, there are going to be examples where there are legitimate excuses, but in a fair few I've seen recently, they just say, oh, coronavirus, we can't pay. And you just think, well, hold on, you know, you've still got access as a director to your bank account, and you can still make payments. So it's really explains to the client that, you know, we do all want to get through this, but ultimately that's your money they're holding, and cash is king at the moment more than ever. So it's about ensuring that you're not last really on their pile of invoices to make payment to. It's about ramping up the pressure, researching the other side, finding out what their buttons might be to press to try and elicit payment, and knowing your own terms and conditions, really, what your payment terms are, what the rights under the contract are to try and get that payment.
Wow. So is your office then still open? You guys are going to courts, the office is open, the staff are there. For the likes of Harding Evans, it must be a nightmare trying to keep all the plates spun, not let certain people into the building, let certain people in, still do the same job if the courts are still open. That must be difficult.
It is. I mean, the board and the partners and all the staff, the support staff, the admin team have been absolutely superb. We're very lucky in that the decision makers we've got are very good. And we've got, for me at the moment, communication is just absolutely key. So, you know, it's particularly key stakeholders like clients, customers, staff. You know, they need to know what you're doing, why, how you're reacting, and how it affect them. So we've got WhatsApp groups at various levels across the business, just to make sure that information problems are all shared quickly. We can make quick decisions, we can understand what's going on. The information is disseminated across the people that need to know. So it's, in terms of the staff man in the office, we're a skeleton crew. So that was determined fairly quickly in terms of who's in the office most of the time to facilitate the fee earners that are working from home, etc. But then there are rotas, there are procedures in place for when people are attending the office, just to make sure that the company is complying with its obligations for health and safety, but also making sure that we are acting in the same way as we were. The IT team, you know, I'm sure they won't mind me saying, extremely stressed when all this happened, because all of a sudden it was making sure that people who haven't traditionally worked from home have the ability to do it. You know, it's been amazing to see really how good they are and how good they've been, and how people have embraced technology, because it's working well.
Do you think it'll remain this way then? You know, I've been over to your offices. I've seen it's a big office. There's a lot of people in there. But, you know, is there a thing that Harding Evans could increase size but decrease buildings in the future? And do you think from the solicitor's point of view or legal that people may do this and work from home a lot more, because technology is going to be ramped up and people can do anything they want from home now anymore?
Yeah, I mean, we've got different departments, as you know, dealing with all sorts of different areas of law. So there will always be the requirement to attend the office. It's an interesting question. I think my advice to people has been, to a large extent, is to embrace the technology and make sure this isn't wasted work, everything that's happening, to help with that flexible working and assisting those who, you know, there is dead time associated with commuting. But ultimately, you know, it's good to be in the office, be face-to-face sometimes, and deal with clients face-to-face. You know, I was on the phone to a new client just this morning who was saying he really wants to meet face-to-face because he just can't handle, he doesn't like this sort of technology. I didn't take it, you know, as he was being offensive towards me. But I'm exactly the same. You know, I do much prefer seeing people face-to-face. I much prefer, if I'm in court, the advocacy being face-to-face in person, so you get a better measure of, you know, what the responses of the judge and, you know, and other people in the courtroom, as opposed to digitally, which it's got its own problems. You know, it has got problems, and the courts have been, you know, it's been a sea change in a sense. They've been over the years, obviously trying to increase access to justice and embracing tech, but this has just been all of a sudden short, sharp kind of thing that's thrust on them to embrace. And I have to say, the hearings I've been involved with, there have been quite a few pushed back just because of, you know, understandable issues concerning even the barristers becoming ill, judges, court staff, you know, on reduced staff. But the hearings I've been part of have been conducted pretty well. So I think you might see an increased change in ramping up how courts do things as well. But
in terms of your job, it's probably you need to see the behaviour or how people you know, move in certain ways, I suppose, in court, and you don't see that over telephone or even over Zoom. That, you know, the way people, you know, their body language and all that, you don't get a grasp of it fully through this. So it's probably more of a negative thing doing something this way through any sort of court case, rather than looking at somebody that's 2-3 foot away, or in this case 2 meters.
Yeah, exactly. So the live witness evidence is always going to be a challenge. You know, just missing a kind of grimace from a judge might be crucial. You know, it's odd the way things work. So it's interesting. So I think we are going to see a change, but I'd like to think that it's not going to be a constant sort of sea change, and we'll go digital fully.
Fair enough. Right. Question for you. What practical steps can businesses take to minimize any adverse impact in the current climate, in your view?
I suppose I touched on it briefly. I suppose a lot of business are in crisis management mode. So it's getting business continuity plan in place that is robust and is reviewed frequently. It's, as I said, really, it's about communication hugely for me. I know no businesses are the same at all, but for me, communication is key in business. And that goes into as well what I was talking about earlier in terms of contracts. You know, if you are on the other side of someone and you think there might be an issue, it's worth picking up the phone in the current climate, speaking to them and potentially varying that contract, you know?
Yeah. So
that's the thing. The key thing for me is the communication element, not letting things fester, because that's when unfortunately I have to rely on people like me to resolve it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Can you give any examples of the legal concerns and issues raised by the department's business clients at the moment?
Yeah, I touched on the contract and recovering payment. In terms of other issues, I suppose it's been to a large extent about strained relationships. So, you know, everyone's got massively personal reasons for how they're reacting in this crisis and what they're doing based on health, etc. But having that distance where people aren't necessarily used to it has led to some sort of suspicion about, co-directors, people not pulling their weight in circumstances where, directors do have directors' duties to act in best interests of the company, promote the success of the company, act with reasonable care and skill and diligence, etc. So there is understandable concern that, if a director isn't pulling their weight, that there might be challenged by shareholders for unfair prejudice, for, that even in terms of disqualification proceedings being brought against them if they just bury their head in the sand and don't react properly, particularly where we're talking about businesses struggling financially and they just carry on trading, burying their head in the sand. There's potential wrongful trading issues and insolvency that is avoidable. So it's about getting that professional advice, noting it, minuting it, so you don't, it's obvious you're not a cowboy who's buried his head in the sand and doesn't care about the interests of the other members of the company and the shareholders.
Okay, so the same question, but is it in terms of any of the other teams in Harding Evans?
Yeah, well, I mean, just there is one further from our team in terms of.
That's a little one wanting to come in and say hello.
Yeah, I don't know who that was. They threw a sheep in here. In terms of the landlord and tenant is another thing, because as the civil procedure rules which govern litigation across this jurisdiction has changed to accommodate this, and there's been, I'm sure you've heard about commercial and residential stays in possession proceedings, so that's caused a lot of kind of inquiries, people trying to find weird and wonderful ways around that to get injunctions to get possession through the back door, and you just think that is not a good idea, because it's hard to hoodwink a judge, and you'll be punished on costs, and it won't look good reputationally in the circumstances. But it is extremely frustrating for some people. But then, in the same breath, it's understandable why those rules are now there, because people are really struggling financially through no fault of their own. So, but in terms of other departments, so commercial, for example, I'm not sure if you guys have heard about a business interruption loan. That may be coming out. It's what they'll look like, what sort of security the bank will want for those.
There's going to be some PGs in there, expecting there.
Yeah, you'd have thought so. And charges, I don't know, what sort of interest-free period people are looking at, but it is a loan.
Yeah.
So they're the sorts of inquiries that they're getting through amongst the sort of commercial landlord and tenant issues, which are always ongoing, the transactional side. Employment, obviously very busy, advising in respect of furloughing and laying off staff and what's permitted in the contract, and really looking at those policies, the policies in respect of absenteeism and sickness and travel, relocation, all those kinds of things. It's almost like a health check situation. It's a very good time to do it, and understanding what you can do. My fellow partner Dan Wild has been producing some blogs about furloughing and impact on business, so they're worth checking out. And wills and probate, it's a grim reality that this has brought those kinds of issues to the forefront of people's mind. And I was on the telephone to a fellow partner, Laura Selby, who I know you guys know, who was just yesterday, I believe, on FaceTime with a lady suffering from coronavirus in hospital, and the nurses were the witnesses in their full gear.
Really? Wow.
Gear. So it's incredible, really. The way things have adapted. And they've also produced in this crisis a myth-busting series. So on social media, it's a bit of an eye-opener about what myths people believe about the wills and probate area, really, not having a will and so on, what will happen on their death. It's interesting what myths are out there. And linked to that is business LPAs, which few people know about, which lasting power of attorneys for business people. So they mostly benefit sole director shareholders or sole traders who employ a lot of people. It's ensuring you have someone who can step into your shoes, as it were, to look after the bank account, to do payroll, to pay suppliers, and to carry on business as usual in circumstances where you might be incapacitated. So it's kind of that extra level of comfort, really. So yeah, it's interesting what's going on across the business, but you know, there has been this kind of surge in inquiries that are spin-offs off the back of coronavirus and the associated impact on businesses.
Which probably sounds wrong, but in a nice way. It's allowed people to bring to the forefront of the mind that they need to get their house in order and, you know, get these legal documents done, get them sorted, get them witnessed, and then into the drawer, and that's it, done. You can forget about it, because there's far too many, you know, I don't know what the percentages are of even wills not done in the UK, and LPAs and that are a lot less, but it's the documents that people need to do that are boring as sin when you're alive, but they just need to be done, put in the drawer and forget about them.
Exactly. It's peace of mind, you know, and the number of people I've spoken to over the years who don't have shareholders agreements in place. You know, the first thing that you'll ask if you're in some sort of dispute is, what documents do you have in place to govern the relationship? And, you know, a lot of people say, I don't have one. And then, you know, it gets to a very difficult situation, particularly where you've got deadlock situations, where it's 50-50 shareholding. You know, is what do you do in that situation? It's very difficult to resolve, where both sides are digging their heels in. And, you know, ultimately it can mean that no one wins, because they're just locked in this battle, and the shareholding, the value of the company suffers, because, you know, the focus should be on driving business and so on, as opposed to getting bogged down in litigation and dispute.
It's a big thing that I always say to I got a lot of business owner clients, and I always say to them that that's one of the key things you need when you set a business up is some sort of shareholders agreement, because that's going to be one of the biggest disputes. But you know, like I say, not many kind of bother in it. It's kind of, it then comes to the forefront when something happens, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. And I see it when it on the sharp end. You know, that's what I was talking earlier about my background in transactional, commercial property and business acquisition and drafting agreements. You know, you kind of draft the agreements, belt and braces, but you never really saw what happens when it went wrong. And now I'm seeing why those agreements are drafted the way they are. You know, because it's when it goes wrong, it can go horrendously wrong, you know, life-changingly wrong. So they are, lawyers are a necessary evil in some people's minds, just because you know, you need to be prepared.
I think that's a big thing. And like when we try and plan for clients, it is trying to think of all the eventualities that kind of come across, and sometimes you only guide people on it. But I just think, you know, the banks are very good at helping people set up, and accountants and so on and so forth, to set up businesses. But I think when they've got more than one partner, they're the things they should be saying. You really need to be going to get a shareholders agreement. And like I say, if it's a single sole trader or a single director limited company with numerous staff, he needs a business LPA, because if he gets taken, you know, he's obviously got a fiduciary duty as a director of things he has to do. If he goes into hospital now and can't do any of those, you know, it's someone needs to be able to step into his shoes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for the business's sake and that director's sake, you know, or, you know, it's they don't want to be worrying about the business when they need to get better. You know, they want to know it's in safe hands. So it's like anything really with the wills as well. It takes the time. It is, you know, it is a pain, as it were, when people are busy. I get that, but once it's done, it's done. You know, I know I have lawyer friends who don't even have wills, and you just think, you know, it's silly. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people get caught up in the fact that a will is just to protect assets and where assets get directed. It's not always that. If you've got kids, it's deciding where they're going to go.
Yeah.
Because if you don't decide, the courts and social services probably will. And that might not be where you want your kids to go.
Absolutely.
You know, that's a big one I always say to clients.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, it isn't just about who gets this pot of money.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got kids, young kids especially, it's about where they go. You know, if the unfortunate event happens that both parents, you know, decease at the same time, you know, it's a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. A grim reality. Yeah.
I said, you know, it's when Gareth mentioned there, the young kids, where do they go? It's not about the pot of money. It's about the pot of money when those kids get older. They want the pot of money.
Yeah.
No, cheers for all that today, but really, really appreciate that. There's a couple of things we could probably put at the end on here. Gareth, I presume that you mentioned Dan's blog. We can grab that and stick that at the end, and
the wills and probate myths,
and Laura's information, so that hopefully, if anyone wants to get hold of you guys, they can come straight to you and make your lives even busier than it is at the moment.
Appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes. They'll be for anyone to kind of pick up on. And we'll also stick your contact details in. They're in Harding Evans, Ben. So if anyone needs any questions, they can kind of get in touch.
Lovely. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thanks for that, Ben. That was great insight. As always, our contact details and more information about Ben and Harding Evans are in the show notes at the bottom. If you do feel you want to reach out to him, all the details will be there. There'll be more videos published every week, so don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button if you want to be notified of our next video. Right, see you in the next video. Take care, guys.